Hey all, I'm Brad of Brave the Woods. Today I want to show you how to use the masking tools within Procreate. They have three different kinds. They have an alpha lock, a clipping mask, and a layer mask. Now they all mask, but they all do it very differently, and I use them all very differently in my illustrations. So let me break them down for you, show you how they're used, and let's go. Okay, so to show you all these different masking tools here in Procreate, I wanted to make this Stegosaurus illustration and show you how I can apply these different techniques here to my illustration. And I want to show you the layers here, my layers panel, and show you that I separate all the different parts of this dinosaur. Now that's if I like to do lots of texture work on different parts. This makes my life so much easier. So separate all the different elements of your illustration, and that'll make it easier for changing the colors or adding textures or whatever else you want to do. The first masking tool we're going to talk about is the alpha lock. Now alpha lock's really easy to use, but it does have a lot of downsides. So let's go to our layers panel up here. I got the body selected, that's fine. I'm going to tap on it and you'll see a little menu pop up on the left hand side. All you have to do is tap on alpha lock and you're alpha locked. And you can tell that you are because of this little checkerboard pattern in the background. Now if any of you are familiar with Photoshop, you'll notice that in the layers panel, there's a little thing called lock pixels, and the icon is a checkerboard. So that's kind of how I remember them, as the same thing. But there's an easier way to turn on and off an alpha lock on any layer. Is just take two fingers and you swipe to the right. See how it turned it off? Or if I swipe again, you'll notice those little checkerboards back there and the alpha lock is on. But what does it do? Let's grab a brush and let's start drawing. It's pretty cool, huh? It just masks off everything in that area, and it only allows you to draw on the active pixels, which is that body shape, the green. Now I've tried to layer everything really well, and you can tell if something is active or not because that little charcoal gray means there's no pixels, there's no colors there, so there's nothing for it to fill in. It's just going to be those plates up here or these spikes down there, and in this case it's just that body. So that's the only thing that you're going to be able to draw on. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, if you look at it, it's all smashed on one layer. And that makes things kind of tricky if you want to come back and do some edits. Like, what if I wanted to change this green color to a yellow color? Well, now you're kind of stuck because you're just going to have to apply a color to the entire thing and do your texturing over again. So it's not very flexible, but I will say where it does shine is when I'm trying to fill in areas with multiple pieces. For example, I'm going to go back, maybe take that back off of here, and let's go over to the line work, which is all the black line work that I've done. Now, normally if I wanted to color in or change the color of anything, let's go back to that blue, I can just drag it onto whatever it was and it'll fill it completely wherever it's a closed path. So it fills it, but great. That's going to take a long time to do all of these. That's a little bit slow. And I can't just go like this because there's no mask. So if I go on there and I guess I just go like this, swipe over there, I have an alpha lock. Now I can just draw all over it, which means I can also do a really cool texturing bit on other pieces, which is kind of neat, but maybe I just want to quickly fill them all in. I can just tap on it and go fill layer, and it fills them all in, all the separate pieces. So that's where I use alpha lock the most. But I still want to be able to manipulate and change colors, maybe add some adjustment layers with my clipping mask on, and I'll show you how to do that next. Next up, we're going to be talking about the clipping mask. This one is my favorite and the one that I use the most. It's very versatile, very easy to use as well. Let's go up to our layers panel. We'll just stay here on body, and let's say I want to add a clipping mask. All I have to do is go and do that little plus button right there. I'm going to tap on it and hit clipping mask. And what has this done now? I'm going to use this little textured brush right here. I want to add some shading, maybe to add some volume to my Stegosaurus. And watch. It still works the same way. It fills in, so you're like, this is exactly the same as alpha lock. But it's not, because this is on a separate layer. So now what I want to do, if I take that selection tool, I can move that around wherever I want. It's not stuck to that one layer. And if I wanted to change the color underneath, let's go to, well, let's just say I wanted to change the Stegosaurus to that pink color. I could do that, and it's not affecting the other texture. So that's really handy. It's a way to be non-destructive in your digital illustrations, which is really important, because especially if you're out there freelancing and you get somebody coming back to you with feedback, you're going to want to be able to make changes quickly and not restart. And or just for your own sanity, you'll want to have that option. So that's why I love being able to use my clipping mask, because then I can add that. But the cool part too is I can add as many as I want. Now those are all just separate layers, right? Well, if I just hit clipping mask on those all are just a clipping mask for this one layer, that one body layer. So let's say I draw on here. I can move all those independently, and what's really neat is I can go over here on my adjustment layers and I can change them. So maybe I want to see the colors behave differently over top of each other, which is really, really neat. And that allows me a lot of flexibility. So that's why I use clipping masks. I have the option to go and do all these different things on separate layers and be able to adjust it later. The final masking tool we're going to talk about is the layer mask. This is probably one that I use the least, but when I do need it, it is a lifesaver. So I love having this option, and it's probably the one that's the most confusing to people. So I'll try to explain it as clearly as possible. Let's go over here to our layers panel, and let's keep this on body. We've been doing that the whole time. So let's tap on there, and you'll see that there's this mask option. That's your layer mask. So if you just tap on it, it adds a little white block on here. Now, what's really important to understand is that white reveals and black blocks out things. So that makes way more sense when I'm going to show you, actually, instead of just saying it. So that white right there is revealing everything. It's showing all that's on that layer. So it's that body, right? If I change my pen here or my brush to black, anything I draw on is going to disappear. It's actually blocking out that area. So for example, I have a piece of paper here. Just imagine that this part of the paper is the black and this empty part is the white. You drop it on there, it's the only things you're going to see is through that window. And so let's say that's your white color right there. So you can go through and you can see it. But the cool part is that it's always the same thing underneath. You're not destroying it or getting rid of it or cropping it in any way. It is just only revealing certain parts. Now, I know I probably should have had a black piece of paper for this. That might have been a little easier to understand, but the principle is the same here. If you have that layer mask and you see white on there, it's revealing everything. If it goes to black, which if I draw, let's say I wanted to, for example, make the skin a little bit more bumpy. But you wanted to do that. Well, you weren't really sure if that's the one you wanted to do, and you didn't want to like copy a whole new layer. So I'm going to add that little bumpiness to my entire body there. But what's nice is, look, that little black mark means it's just blocking it. So that's all I'm doing. If I was to turn that off, you'll see that I didn't destroy anything and it's all still there. That's really handy. And no matter where you bring this, it's going to stay there. It's not going to separate. That mask is always a part of that layer. But so any sort of things you do on there, it's not going to destroy it, which that's what a layer mask does. It's very, very nice. Now, one of my favorite uses for the layer mask is for adding an overall texture. I'll show you what I mean. It's a really, really handy thing to use. If I was to have this, I have this wood texture on here. I wanted to apply it to just the body of my dinosaur. Now I could, let's go to multiply actually. There we go. Now I could go through and I could just erase all of the wood texture I don't want and just leave it on the dinosaur, but that's tedious and hard and you're destroying your texture. I don't want to do that. So what I can do is I can just go back to the body. Let's turn off that wood texture for a second. I'm going to go to my selection tool and make sure it's on automatic. Then I'll just tap on my dinosaur. And you'll know that it's selected when I go over here. It has all these little diagonal gray lines. That means that part is masked off. So then all I have to do is I go up to my wood texture and I tap on it and I hit mask. And you'll see when I hit the wood texture, let's turn that off, that now I have it masked off just in the space of my dinosaur body. And the coolest part about that is that I can move this all independently, and maybe I want to make it look a little offset, and that's really neat. And now I can go back and I can even take some parts off of this. If I go back to my mask, and remember black blocks, so I'm going to go on here. I'm going to add some little, little spots on my Stegosaurus. And I'm not destroying my texture at all. It's still there, perfectly fine, but it masked off just around the areas that I want. And that's one of the bigger reasons why I like the layer mask. I just don't use it a ton, but it's a really cool tool. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope there's some things in there that could help you. Hopefully clipping masks are a little bit clearer now for you in Procreate, and you can go use them in your next illustration. I know I use them in all my illustrations, mainly because I don't like when things are smashed all in one layer and I can't edit them, especially when I have clients. So make sure you clean up those files, get lots and lots of layers in there, and it helps to use different types of masks. That'll be a big lifesaver for you. So if you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep doing videos just like these, and we'll see you next time.